Before the episode starts, I just wanted to let you all know that the Thirsty Mage has just launched a monthly newsletter to keep you up to date on all of the important releases, news, and other helpful information from the past month. Head over to thethirstymage.com or click on the link in the episode notes to read our latest issue. You can even register your email to get a nice smartphone-friendly edition delivered directly to your device each month. Now on with the show. Greetings and welcome to The Thirsty Mage, the podcast that's kicking butt and taking names during this off period of big budget RPGs. I'm your host David Lloyd, and this week on the podcast we've got a couple of reviews of some terrific indie RPGs that you may not have heard of, and, probably should know about. We also have a little bit of waxing poetic about playing some Pokémon again with our kids as well. Here with me, making sure he's collected them all with his little ones, it's Jordan Rudick.
It's funny. We are going to talk about Pokemon later, and my sons are just so obsessed with it in all forms. Clips on YouTube, the TV show. I haven't gotten to the movies yet, but the cards, the games, the toys, everything. Whenever we go to the store now, it's looking for Pokemon cards, and I'm like, oh man, I don't know if my budget can accommodate the pursuit of collecting them all Pokemon card wise. So it's been fun, but also a little perilous to the wallet whenever we go out now.
Yeah, we have like boxes and boxes of those cards. There was it must be just like a coming of age thing. When the kids get to a certain age, they're just completely into it.
Yeah,
I don't know if my kids have looked at them twice in the past couple of years, but it's also cyclical too, because even me, like a couple of years ago, I really got back into them. I guess when my kids got into them, and I have I had one of the big iPads, like the 11-inch ones. So playing the Pokemon digital game was really nice on that iPad, and then just recently, I guess the Pokemon company decided that their big beautiful application wasn't good enough anymore, so they switched it to this mobile friendly one that just looks like dog.
Yeah, it's not. I know the one you're talking about, and it's not super attractive. It's decent for teaching the game. Maybe the old one was decent for teaching it too. But I do like that. My son, we found a way to make it so he doesn't have to play like online opponents. You can just play the AI, and he does have fun with that. It was a good introduction. But now I think they just want to do the cards a lot, the actual physical cards a lot more than the digital version.
Yeah. See, the only trick with the cards is like it was nice. I enjoyed playing it on the digital, and the kids did too, because the computer knew all the rules.
Yes, so, that's true. It's
true. Sometimes it's easy to put a card down and forget about an ability or forget about this or that. So it's and it also prevented any disagreements when the kids are playing each other in a game. So
yeah, see that's my issue right now, is that my oldest wants to play by the rules, but my youngest just wants to play his favorites. So he's like looking through the deck, and he's like trying to find like Quaxley and the whole Quaxley family, evolution family, I guess. And my oldest will complain like, "Oh, you're cheating! You can't just look at all the cards in the deck." He's like, "I just want to play my favorites," and it's funny to hear them bicker about it. And maybe a year or two from now, if they're still into it, they'll both be interested in actually playing the game as it's meant to be played. But right now, they're kind of at a crossroads in terms of how they actually want to use the cards. So, but both enjoying like the collecting for sure, and like the hoarding and looking at them. But just the actual playing, they're at different stages right now. So we'll see how that develops.
Yeah. But yeah, we got some indies to get into. I know when you had told me what game you were playing, I went, huh? And then had to look it up. But the backstory sounds pretty neat. So why don't you give me a breakdown of what's going on with Fading Afternoon?
Sure. So Fading Afternoon is the third game from a developer named, I think it's Yo or maybe Yo. After the first one was The Friends of Ringo Ishikawa. The second one was Arrest of a Stone Buddha. So I've checked out all these games just because, and primarily because they look like River City Ransom, right? They have that kind of heavily inspired by the Kunio-kun kind of style or series. And these are, man, it's hard to kind of classify them. They do have RPG characteristics. They have kind of sort of open world characteristics as well. Choose your own adventure style. Like they're very much open to interpretation, I guess. So the idea is in Fading Afternoon, And the games all kind of have a similar mafia yakuza kind of style to them. So you get out of jail. You're this character named, I'm forgetting, it's Seiji Maruyama. You get out of jail, middle-aged yakuza. You go and see like your former boss, and he's kind of like, here, let's set you up in a hotel, try to help you get back on your feet. Um, and from there, the game really doesn't tell you much about what to do, how to play it, anything like that. And I think that's been kind of characteristic of all three of Yo's games that he's developed here. I think it's a he. Hopefully, I'm right about that. And so you kind of just struggle your way through trial and error style, trying to figure out how these games actually play. You move from screen to screen. In Fading Afternoon, there's actually like a world map, and so you kind of choose where you want to go. And early on in the game, you're taking the train, and it's almost like it's not a like little cutscene, but it's almost like a little loading screen before you get to the next place. And then like River to City Ransom style, you walk, across an elongated screen that scrolls for maybe 10 or 15 seconds or so. And there might be a couple of shops to pop into. Maybe one of the first objectives you have is to go to a pawn shop and pick up a gun. Obviously, if you're a mafia, yakuza type, you need to have a weapon on you. You pick up a gun, there's a firing range there. And then maybe when you step out of the pawn shop, there's these guys in, maybe green suits kind of milling about. And you can basically pick a fight with them. And so you realize that a part of Fading Afternoon is these wars between these different yakuza groups. And they'll have different outfits, like the green ones are burgundy or whatever, different names. And so you take them all down. And early on in the game, you get kind of a tutorial for how combat works. I feel like combat in this game is a little bit more sophisticated, or maybe a little bit better explained than the previous two titles. It does, again, it is kind of in that Kunio-kun style of punching and kicking and grabs and stuff like that. There's no jumping that I can recall. You can also steal people's weapons and kind of turn it against them. Like they might have a sword or something like that. You can steal it and then kind of bash them with it. Or you can pull out your gun. The enemies can have guns too, which can be quite devastating to your health meter. You start off with a lot of total health, and this is something that's kind of messed me up a little bit on the playthrough. Is it's tricky to restore all of your health. So most of the time after I get knocked out, I come back. Let's say I've got 150 health out of my 999 total, and I just don't know how to play this game to the point where I can fill up my health to 999 as it suggests in my top left corner meter. I should be able to. But I've done a couple things to get my health back after I get beat up, which just happens. You just take damage. It's hard to avoid all the damage, I find. Maybe other people are better at the combat than I am. But you can go to a massage parlor. You can go to have a sit-down meal. You can go to visit your friend who has like a hot dog or sandwich stand. You can have a sandwich. One of the things I learned like recently when I was playing the game is you can dig around in the trash and just eat garbage, and that gives you a little bit of health back. But it also drops your reputation. Like there's like a reputation counter that goes up if you clear an area of a different Yakuza group, but it goes down if you're eating garbage to get your health back. So you have to be careful about that. You can kind of stumble upon cutscenes, or maybe kind of read between the lines a little bit about what you have to do. But maybe your boss, your former Yakuza boss, who's kind of still mentoring you, I guess, he'll give you like tasks to do. It's just hard to figure out where to do them, or how to accomplish things. Even when you wake up in the morning, you might see like two photos of mafia bosses you need to take out. One was actually sitting in the hotel lobby where I was staying, but every time I got close to him, he just gunned me down. So I don't know how to take that one out. I ended up taking out one of them on a run that I was doing. But yeah, I wasn't able to take the other two down. And so as I've read about this game, kind of read about other people's experience playing it, it's kind of just come to Switch, Fading Afternoon, but it's been on Steam for a little bit. I want to say maybe since like September of last year, something like that. So almost a year, approaching a year. And so I've seen kind of comments on Steam forums about different endings that people have achieved, and kind of different playthroughs and narrative moments you can access. And I've only seen a handful of those that they've mentioned, and maybe some of the ones I've seen they haven't. There's a baseball simulator kind of thing, taken straight out of Yakuza. It feels like that you can go and play. There's a fishing mini game, so there's other little things you can do, but it's a game without any kind of hand holding at all. Like Fading Afternoon is meant to be just an exploration, I guess. Just kind of do what you feel like, live that day to day, and if you want to pursue particular endings, I guess you have to really read between the lines, or just kind of trial and error your way through and see what you can make happen. You can kind of be a little bit more vicious, I think, in the game, like just fighting everybody, or maybe a little bit more like just a little bit more talking and kind of negotiating your way through. I don't think you have to solve all of your problems with violence necessarily, but yeah, I've only seen one of the endings so far, and I do want to play it a little bit more and see what else I can discover. But these games by Yo, they're all of the same flavor, and so if you kind of get into one of them, or you've played one of them before, I think you'll have a similar experience with the other two. I remember Arrest of a Stone Buddha, the second game, being a little bit more mission based, kind of, whereas Friends of Ringo Ishikawa and Fading Afternoon maybe a little bit more open style, where you can kind of just do whatever. But I may be misremembering that a little bit. They're all so similar that it does kind of run together a little bit. So it's cool. It's cool to get another one. And I think the combat might be elevated a little bit here. I've enjoyed it a little bit more, just beating guys up and collecting money. And I saved up to buy a car. I had to buy a very crappy one, but now I don't have to take the bus anymore. That's nice. But I also ran out of money for the hotel stay, because I found that quite expensive. So I've been saving up to buy an apartment, I guess. But it's a lot of money to do that. So I'm just sleeping in my car right now, I think, kind of playing the transient lifestyle a little bit. But yeah, that's Fading Afternoon. It's pretty quirky. It doesn't hold your hand at all, which is funny because I think that is a little bit in the same style as River City Ransom. When we first played that game back on NES, we had to kind of figure out what to do and where to go next. It also didn't really hold your hand. You had to talk to people and kind of figure your way through. And I guess these games, yeah, they're kind of living up to that legacy in a way. And so they're all pretty interesting to me. Just personally, I don't find them like 10 out of 10 home runs, but they are unique and intriguing. And so if you've never tried any of these, I would maybe start with Fading Afternoon, so it seems a little bit more polished. But don't be afraid to kind of look online and see what other people have done in these games, or look up kind of tiny walkthroughs just to get your feet, just to get kind of acclimated a bit. If you're feeling lost in them, but yeah, Fading Afternoon, I think it's just come to Switch first week of June, and worth having a look at if you haven't tried any of these games before, or if you're a River City Ransom fan and you're looking for something a little bit different.
I've been watching a playthrough while you're talking, and there's some neat things. Some funny things that I've seen too. Like, when you're talking about the HP, the character ordered yakisoba noodles from a stall and got 100 HP back.
Yeah, you can do that.
I just saw the massage parlor where
that's a good way to get health back. There's a spa too. You can go where you kind of sit in the hot tub, I guess, or the sauna.
And then I just saw he went and attacked a guy at a bar, and the guy got up, turned around, and shot him. And
yes, you got to be careful.
Your character wakes up in a hospital.
Yeah, and apparently you can romance the doctor that's in the hospital too.
Yeah, that's what I just saw.
I didn't even know about that till later. I realized you should chat with them every time you go to the hospital, and then you can build up a rapport there. But
it's hilarious. It's funny. It looks to me, it's like there definitely has the Kunio-kun vibes to it with the look and the fighting and everything. But it almost seems like a demake of Yakuza in a way. Like,
oh, totally. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, with some of the story stuff that's happening for sure. And just even the violence as well, and the kind of the way, like, River City Ransom wasn't like this, where you could kind of just like do whatever you want, like had mini games and stuff like that. But whereas Fading Afternoon, like, if you just want to focus on like getting a nice car, buying an expensive suit, getting the top notch apartment, I think you can just do that stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, I guess how you make money might be mostly just beating guys up, but yeah, there's a little bit of that, not pursuing like a main goal and just kind of playing it however you want to, I guess.
Yeah, I just saw there was like 14 minutes straight of the player just beating on people in the street.
Yes, you could do that. The
Yeah.
combat's fun enough, and you can do um,
You could
like
catch the
dodge.
weapon
Yeah,
apparently,
yeah,
and yeah.
exactly. Or you can catch like their fist and like break their arm or something like that. Like there's a lot of like counters and stuff like that too. So
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be a pretty fun game. And again, I think all of these are pretty interesting. And it's a little niche of these kind of open world beat 'em up RPGs that maybe people haven't experienced before. And I don't know if I've talked about either the previous games on the podcast. So go and check these ones out. They're on Steam. I think all three are on Switch now too. So they may be on other platforms as well. But yeah, certainly kind of cool to look at for sure.
Yeah, I think I've added it to my wish list. I'm
Mhm.
probably going to pick it up as likely as soon as we
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
recording. But
They're fairly
yeah,
cheap too, which is nice, right? They're not all that expensive.
yep. Uh, so the game, the indie game I've been playing recently is so it's funny. I was on Twitter and just kind of saw. I don't even remember who it was. Someone just had mentioned about this game being really great, but it was like kind of like one tweet buried in the sea of things that get blasted at me on a daily basis. And I guess it was almost just the name because it's the game is called 1000XResist. And so I saw the name and then read the tweet about how it was basically like the person was saying like this should be considered game of the year, and I'm thinking like, man, I haven't heard of this game at all. So I'm like looked it up, and it came out. I guess it came out in May, early May, and I in my Googling or whatever, I saw a couple other people. It wasn't there has clearly isn't very many people playing it because there wasn't that many reviews, but everyone that I've seen playing it, like it's highly reviewed, like everyone's giving it high ratings. So I'm like, oh, I gotta give this a go then. So I started playing, and man, was I blown away. So this game I want to call it more of like a third person visual novel, because really the game is mostly just going through a story. It kind of reminded me of what there's like those atmospheric games where you're kind of walking. I'm trying to remember what they're called now. They have very simple names. they're they're always getting. Oh man, I'll have to Google it
Are
one
you
time.
thinking of the genre or the title specifically?
Well, the title, there's like that. There's the it's the title. It has like just like a simple name, but it's like basically it's like your character is like going from left to right, but there's like puzzles along the way, but there's
Yeah.
also a story being told throughout it. And it's the one where you end up as they're like the second game I remember. They recently put out a game recently, and that, but the one I remember was like you turn into a blob at the end of like just a mass of people. But anyway,
Oh, geez, I have no idea what you're talking about that
I
with
know,
that.
I'm gonna have to
Oh,
figure that out.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I wrote reviews on it and everything. But yeah. So anyway, the 1000XResist is yeah, it's like you're playing in kind of like this third person perspective where you're playing as the main character, and the game starts off at this school, and it's like years after the world has been destroyed by this disease that has been brought to the world by aliens. So there's at some point in human history, like around now, I guess, these aliens visit the Earth, but when they get here, a disease starts like basically decimating the population, while wherever it's like spreading from wherever they land. And uh, so there's this high school at the very beginning, and there's only like one survivor. So the government has decided like, oh well, we got there's this one person clearly has something in their biology that is protecting them from the disease, so we need to figure out what it is. So they end up bringing her to this facility, and there's like they're cloning her and they're experimenting and they're trying to figure it out or whatever. And so the whole story is taking place over thousands of years,
Hmm.
because like you're partially playing in the future, but then you're also experiencing the past, and like not only when the aliens come, but even before that, because you're basically seeing this character's life you're playing through different portions of their life and stuff. So
Hmm.
you're seeing like how her parents were involved in like the Hong Kong protests, and how they came to Canada, because this is a Canadian developer. How they came to Canada after like the protest, like it basically like it didn't work out for them, and so they fled to Hong Kong and started a new life in Canada. And you see the struggles with uh, trying to come to a new country and kind of give up. That they regret having given up on their fight or whatever. And so there's like tensions between the mother and the father, and things aren't going well with the daughter, who's the main character of the game, Iris. And you just see like, oh, there's so many complexities of the game. And the whole time I'm just kind of, you get that feeling of, to me it felt like watching Lost back in the
Hmm.
day,
Yeah.
when you're like, what happens next, what tidbits of information am I going to get? And like, oh well, they just revealed this, which kind of pieces this together and this together. And so yeah, it's just basically like you're going through different areas, and there are puzzles that you have to kind of figure out. I wouldn't say they're overly difficult, but when you first start the game, you're playing as this one character named Watcher, and she's a clone of the original Iris. And there's 5 other clones, and they all have like a specific purpose. Like there's you're playing as Watcher, and then there's a one called Knower, who is supposed to be like the keeper of knowledge, and then Healer is the one that's like running the cloning process, and trying to get everyone healthy. And and then there's one called Bang Bang Fire, and she's basically like the soldier.
Hmm.
So they all have like these processes, but even now, like they're all wearing masks, because if they actually take off their masks, they'll die from the disease. So there's actually like times where they'll be walking through the facility, and like one of the clones is like fell down and her mask fell off, and she died from the disease or
Oh,
whatever. So
geez.
it's yeah, so there's like so much going on. And then like, and I can't really get into too much of the story because it's like such a big part of the game. But
Hmm.
there this big thing happens, and then it flashes forward, and you're playing as another character that's kind of I would say like I'll watch her in the future, I guess, like kind of taking over her mantle, sort of thing. And yeah, it's just an incredible game. The whole thing plays out. I think I ended up finishing the game around 9ish hours or so. And yeah, like it's one of these games that's so difficult to talk about, because you have it's so much of it is just experiencing the story. So it's a very atmospheric game in that sense, I would say.
Is there multiple endings, or is there things you would go back to like try a different path or something like that, or a different conversation? Like, is there
Uh,
anything built into it like that?
there are multiple endings, but it's all at the very end. Like the
Okay.
decisions made really are only affected at the very end. Like it's not one of those um where it's like, oh well, if you had to done that thing halfway through the game 5 hours ago, then you would have got the best ending.
Right.
uh, it very much is like the first 8 hours is just experiencing the story. Like you're just needing to get through the puzzles to see everything. And then when you get to the very final end, then there's like, okay, here's 10 decisions that you need to make. I don't even know if it was 10, maybe it was like 8. You have to make 8 specific decisions, and then there's an ending based on that.
Yeah.
And then if you don't get the good ending, what happens is once that's over, it flashes you back to that point where you have to make, because you make the 8 decisions at like the exact like in one spot.
Right. Right.
So it just flashes you back there, and you get another try to get the good ending.
Oh, I
So you
see.
just keep
Okay.
going through it until you get the good ending. So yeah, it's a really neat experience. It's neat that it's not every day you get publishers in Canada. Like they're in BC, so I'm sure there's some very personal feelings that are intertwined into this game,
Hmm.
because it delves into a lot of like government control. And there's, like I said, there's like cloning stuff, so there's a lot of philosophical ideas that are tossed around. But I
Yeah.
think like the writing's really well done. The game works really well. The only real gripe I have is that there's a lot of the game takes place in the facility where the cloning takes place, and it's rather large.
Hmm.
There's like a lot of times where you're walking around and you have to talk to people, but there's no map. So I would often be like, oh crap, I don't remember how to get to that side of the building. So I'm like kind of running around trying to figure out where were those stairs or whatnot. But it does have a where you can hold the button and it'll show like a compass of where the person that you need to talk to is standing. So you have a
Okay.
general like, okay, I've clearly got to go north towards this person, but I've got to figure out, okay, how do I get up to the third level where it is? And but I mean, I wouldn't say I wasted any time just walking around in circles. It was just more of a slight annoyance than anything. So
Hmm. What's striking me about just looking some of the images on the Switch eShop page here is like just the kind of different colors that are used, like a lot of reds and blues and purples, and I guess colors I might associate with emotion or something like that. So
yeah,
even the style is certainly like a maybe a little bit cyberpunkish or
yes,
something
yeah,
like that.
because it mostly takes place in the future. So there's
Yeah, that
definitely
makes
like
that
a
makes
very
sense.
futuristic setting to it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I've heard so much kind of good praise or just universal praise about the game, pretty much from everyone who's talked about it. We're I think it's Willem who's working on a review of the game for us for NWR. It may or may not be published by the time you're hearing this, but I definitely want to check this one out. I've added it to my eShop wish list as well. There's a launch discount too, so I need to see if I have,
yeah,
I might even have enough coins to pick it up now. But yeah, I definitely want to check this one out at some point as well. Sounds really good.
yep.
Love your mother and trust in her teachings. Do your duties and carry out your function for a future far from sin or incineration. We're all just flowers in
Now's probably a good time to get into the Pokemon talk because
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, I know you've been rediscovering. It's funny because you had told me that you were playing Pokemon Yellow, and it kind of blew me away because I'm like, man, I just finished the original Pokemon game not too long ago myself, playing Fire Red on the GBA. So I'm curious how your retro run back to the original Pokemon game felt this time around.
Yeah, it's funny, like how it even came about. Like it's just a confluence of conflux. I'm not sure. It's too early for me to come up with the right vocabulary term. Um, it's just all these different factors kind of coming together that all revolve around Pokemon. So yeah, my primary driver is my kids getting really into Pokemon again, and kind of I'm going to go back to a game that I don't know that I ever finished Pokemon Yellow because I had Blue growing up, and then I would have had Silver and Leaf Green, and Yellow was just one that I skipped because I'd played so much of Blue that the third versions of the whole series kind of eluded me because I always played like one of the first two games, and then when the third one came out, I'd usually moved on to something else or maybe the next Pokemon game. So Yellow is one that's a little bit of a blind spot for me. So I'm about halfway through the game now. I think I've just finished up at Lavender Town. So I think I have 4 badges, and just kind of playing it pretty slowly. Whenever I've got 30 minutes or an hour to kill, or even if I'm at work and the office hours are slow, I might play it for a little bit. Just to take my eyes off of the computer screen for a little bit and go sit down in my chair and have a go. But yeah, Pokemon Yellow it's been quite fun to play again. I always try to every time I play a Pokemon game that I've played before, I'll try to play it differently the next time. So just adding some different Pokemon to my team as opposed to just using all the starters. Like I've got a Mankey, I've got a Pidgeotto. I didn't realize you could actually catch a Pidgeotto in Viridian Forest in that game. So I ended up catching a Pidgeotto. I still got my Pikachu and a Mankey, and so I think it's almost a Primeape. I was just trying to collect all the moves as Mankey, because if you leave them at the pre-evolve stage, they learn some of the moves faster, which was a little tip I tried to use as much as I could. Um, but yeah, it's been fun to go through the game again. I think these games still hold up. I think you can still play like the original Pokemon games and have a pretty good like RPG experience out of them. They're very well designed, and even though like graphically they're quite primitive, um, there's still a charm to the pursuit of whether you want to catch them all or even just the gym battles themselves can be tricky if you don't grind in these games and you don't have like the right type advantages. You can get stuck. Like I did find like there were a couple parts in the game where maybe around the Lieutenant Surge area in the SSN where I was having a heck of a time, and I needed to go and um, just go fight some more trainers and not skip as much as I had been kind of speed running through the game. One of my first I guess pushes with the game was okay, I want to beat this as fast as I can, and then I started looking into like, okay, how do you actually speed run the game? And it's very precise. It's very like you have to do exactly this, catch this Pokemon, use this the whole time. And I just wasn't really about that for this playthrough. I wanted to beat it fast, but I also didn't want to play it so prescriptively. I wanted to kind of just do my own thing and feel my own way around the game again. And so that was part of it. And I guess another thing I've been doing with Pokemon is I've been watching this one speedrunner, and I think he's Canadian, J Rose 11 on YouTube, and he does these runs where he starts with a particular Pokemon. Like let's say he starts with Kadabra, and he'll beat the whole game literally just using Kadabra, and that's it. And then some other Pokemon for HMs, but it'll just be all the battles are just with Kadabra. And he does it with all, like, I don't know how much of the Pokedex he's actually completed to this point, but I've watched like 2 or 3 dozen runs that he's done, Eevee, all the evolutions, Moltres, Mewtwo, and then, tougher ones like Bellsprout or I think he might have even done a Magikarp run. I don't know if I've seen that one before, but Geodude, like just name a Pokemon and he just runs through the game as fast as he can with this one Pokemon. It obviously involves tons of grinding for some of them that he cuts out of the videos, but they're pretty compelling. I think he's a pretty worthwhile follower on YouTube if you are into Pokemon or speedrunning. He doesn't like time himself necessarily, or there's no like timer on the screen like a game's done quick or some of the other speedrunners that we've seen. But his focus on just kind of mastering these early Pokemon games is pretty fun to watch. So that's something I've also been doing kind of around like the Gen 1 Pokemon games. With my youngest, we've been playing on my analog pocket. We've been playing Pokemon Sapphire actually. So that was fun to kind of let him choose like the starter and whether we catch or use particular Pokemon. I let that be up to him. And we're kind of just slowly going through that game as well. He's so funny, my youngest, because he wants to start all these Pokemon games, but whether like not that he runs out of steam, it's just that he's so much more interested in choosing the starter and seeing the beginning of the game than he is finishing any of them. So we've started all these games, whether it's on the Pocket or on Switch or wherever. We've started Sword and Shield. We're almost at the end. We're at the Elite Four for Scarlet Violet. We've been playing Pokemon Violet. So that we're coming to the end of that one, but that's been a fairly long journey with both my sons actually. I played a little bit of Crystal with him as well. I've got Leaf Green ready to go. We're going to play that at some point. So it's been a nice kind of bonding experience playing with the kids, and then just kind of me remembering these old games as well, kind of playing Yellow by myself and trying to. I guess pair it with some of the strategies that J Rose 11 is doing on YouTube, and just seeing some of the ways that he goes through the game, and seeing if I can pull off some of those tricks as well has been fun to do as well. But yeah, David, I know you played Fire Red a little while ago. I was wondering like if you felt that game held up, or if you can kind of compare it to some of the ones even before that.
Yeah, it was nice. Like, because I grew up, my first Pokemon game was Blue,
Me too.
So I was have a partiality to the first one, and then I ended up buying red and yellow when I was after playing blue because I
Yeah.
liked it so much. It's funny that you talk about with yellow how you can kind of get into some bad spots because with Brock being the first gym and you having an electric type, the first gym is actually one of the harder
It's the
because
hardest ones. Yeah.
you have to really work to get your Rattata and your Pidgey up to a certain level to be able to
Mm-hmm.
get past it. I guess you can get Pikachu up to do the quick attack, but that's about all you'll
Yeah,
have to
or a
do.
Butterfree probably a good way to go
Oh
through
yeah,
that,
that's a good
right?
one too.
It's
Yeah,
just a pain in the
confusion.
it's just a pain in the butt to get
Yeah,
like your Caterpie and Metapod up to because you got to keep switching back and forth. There's no experience share to that point in the game, so
yeah.
that can be a tricky one too.
It was funny because I just felt like the playing Fire Red and not having like I never had a GBA when I grew up, so playing Fire Red was quite amazing because it was like, man, this almost looks like the perfect Pokemon look. Like it's like this
Yes.
pixel. Like I prefer the pixel Pokemon to like the where things are going now. Where it was like on the 3DS, it was kind of like the bigger characters running around, whatever. I really like the pixel version, but the GBA is kind of like the best looking of the bunch because you've got like the big beautiful color and the sprites are bigger and everything looks terrific. So I've been wanting to go back to some of the other Pokemon games on the GBA. I think Sapphire. It's funny they mentioned Sapphire because I think that was one of the ones I was looking at.
Yeah.
Um, like not cheap.
No, they're not.
GBA
Yeah,
games.
yeah. We were just in Victoria over the weekend, and we went to Richer Game Shop. A really big one that we like. We got the kids got some cards. My wife and I got some hats, and I was looking at some of the old games, and I was telling my youngest like, "Oh, how much is this one? How much is this one?" I got him to read the prices. I'm like, I think it was $250 for Crystal or something like that. I'm like, oh my goodness, like they're. I would love to have those still, but yeah, it's tricky just to and once upon a time, like I owned all those games, and I actually what I really regret is not getting and I thought I had, but I didn't buy Crystal. I think it was on the 3DS eShop because they had gold and silver, and I want to believe they had Crystal as well. And I just regret not picking that up before the 3DS eShop closed. That was stupid of me, but yeah, at least I grabbed yellow. I probably should have just bought all of them. Honestly, I should have bought them all. It'd be so nice to have them on the 3DS on the go like that. But
I actually might have Crystal myself because I went on a 3DS kick and ended up buying like every 3DS Pokemon game. So like I've got like the Fire Omega and Ruby Sapphire or whatever it's called, and then X and Y and Sun and Moon. Like I have like a whole drawer just of those 3DS games. So
yeah, and I've been kind of cleaning out my parents' house and lucked into a few cartridges as well. And it's funny the kind of buried treasure you can find in
yeah,
in an attic or a garage. It's pretty crazy. And so we found like just Pokemon stickers, more cards, and so every Friday when we go to my parents' house for dinner, we'll kind of sift through the garage after dinner or after dessert and just kind of see what treasures, what goodies we can find in there. The kids are having a ball with that. My dad's actually really loving it too because we're just unearthing all these old photos and just like in old books and stuff that we just didn't even know that any of that stuff was there. It was really cool. So yeah, I mean, Pokemon it was also another kind of maybe vague reasoning behind wanting to get into these games again. Let's think about maybe doing a Pokemon book next, and just seeing how interested the kids are in it, and just thinking about the ubiquitousness of Pokemon and just how it's still this massive thing for kids and adults alike. I think everyone's still excited by new Pokemon things coming and going back to old Pokemon things as well. So yeah, it's cool. I'm eager to keep. I'm curious, like just how this is going to go. Like whether my kids are, want to going to keep getting into the cards and how serious that's going to be, or if it's going to be more of the games or the shows and movies. Like which part of the media they're going to be the most obsessed with, I guess. But the stuff I meant to say, the stuffies are also a really big part for them too. They've already picked out ones that they want for their birthday and for Christmas and everything too. So. My goodness, like it's a full Pokemon household for us these days, and I just kind of, I guess in my own time, like I feel like going back to my childhood version of it or memories of it has been it's just something I like to do because because I know that they're going to be forming these memories too, and so what games are they going to be nostalgic about when they're our age? I think that's something I've been thinking about too, which would be helping to kind of create these memories with them has been fun.
Yeah, one great resource is the Pokemon encyclopedias that you can pick up at like chapters and stuff, where it's literally just a book of all the Pokemon.
Yeah.
We've got like 3 or 4 of them now.
We've got a couple as well, and more from the library that I need to return. I think actually.
Yeah, well, it's a great way for parents to connect with the kids because like the kids are really into it, and then Pokemon's one of those things where like because we grew up with it, like we know the characters, and even the ones that maybe you don't know from more recent generations, like it's still like pretty intuitive of you hear the name, you see the thing, and then you're like, okay, it's clearly a grass type or a water type or whatever. Like it's easy enough to get into.
I'm more surprised by some of the moves that they have or like their special ability. It's like we're playing Pokemon Violet and I used a water move on someone I thought was ground and they absorbed the water move. I'm like, oh shoot, I thought they're ground. Oh, they're poison, but they can absorb water. And there's all these new variations on like familiar Pokemon, right? Like different, I guess updated versions of like a Grimer or a Tentacool or something like that. And it's like, oh, they're a completely different type. They act completely differently now. So you can't even your old knowledge is kind of useless in a way. Like you can't rely on that. So yeah, I feel like I'm having to relearn the Pokedex with all these new types and stuff like that. And
the first generation's definitely stuck more to like this one type or that one type.
Yes, exactly.
And now they're a lot more like, oh, it's these 2 types.
That's right. Yeah. And all these different transformations and stuff like that. Like, and the kids know all this stuff, of course.
Oh, the evolutions and
they're absorbing it like sponges. Yeah. And for us, it's like, oh, we have to relearn all this stuff or forget what we used to know or something like that. And I guess with Pokemon, there's also there's negativity to the fan base and to the reception of some of these games. Like, oh, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and the DLC, like they run like crap, and yeah, they do. Like there's no getting around the fact that I think we want more out of these games, and I wish they kind of push the hardware more, or maybe that they technically were a little bit more sound. And I wonder if that will, maybe moving into the next generation Switch, like that'll be a goal for the Pokemon Company, and just to really take advantage of the hardware and really push it to its limits, as opposed to, maybe just trying to inch along kind of very incremental progress, as it seems like that they have been doing. But again, you can't argue with the fact that these games are still immensely popular. This media property is still among the biggest in the world. And there's still a magic to it. I think there's still something just fun and whimsical about Pokemon as a thing. I'm starting to see parents at my kids' school now that, like, I'll mention a Pokemon and it's not like, oh, that's a kid's thing. It's like, oh yeah, I've got that sticker on my fridge, or I've got like a magnet, or I've got like, I have a shirt like that. Like even parents, around our age, mid 30s, early 40s type, like they whatever, kind of connection they have to Pokemon, they've still kind of established some nostalgia there. Whether it was Pokemon Go that everyone got into religiously, some people still play, so much. Even if they didn't play the games, Pokemon Go was a touchstone for them. Or maybe they did play the games, or they had siblings who played the games. Everyone seems to have some kind of exposure to Pokemon. And as a parent of, young kids now, like I feel like that connection is kind of growing strong again. And so it's been really enjoyable to see them get into it, and to, there's so many questions about, is this one strong? Is this one fast? Is this a good one? What does this one learn? And man, I feel like I have to go back to school, get another degree just to teach them all about all these different things, because it's developed so much since we were kids, and again, being RPG fans, like Pokemon was one of those big RPG games for us, right? And I wonder if it's going to be this is going to be a gateway RPG for them. That's something that has kind of been on my mind a little bit too. Like, what's the next one for them to try after Pokemon if they're enjoying this so much? Is it another kind of monster collecting game? Is it, like Dragon Quest Monsters or something like that, or Digimon? Or is it, maybe a Final Fantasy down the line, or a Dragon Quest, a Dragon Quest like a 5, like that. Gosh, I really hope that we've been hearing about Dragon Quest 1, 2, 3 maybe being remade. I would love if some of the more kind of monster collecting focused Dragon Quest games also made their way to modern platforms as well, because those could be good gateways to larger RPGs afterwards too.
Yeah, well, didn't that latest Dragon Quest one? It was kind of along the line of a Pokemon style, and I'm pretty sure it did really well. Like
Dragon Quest Monsters 3, the recent one that came out?
Like it just came out a few months ago, and I'm pretty sure I remember hearing them the sales were surprisingly high.
Yeah, I think Paige played it, and it's funny that every time we talk about Dragon Quest, we hear about sales being high, and every time we talk about Final Fantasy, sales are not high enough. So it's like, I don't know, man. Like the expectations for those two series maybe need to be a little bit more balanced or a little bit more in line, because I think they're both great, and I'm certainly eager to see more Dragon Quest, hopefully later this year too. But I think some of those Monsters games could do well for Pokemon fans, I think. And so maybe that's one I play with my kids when they're a little bit older too.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned about like with the parents. I guess with the video game industry becoming older, and like all the parents having grown up with video games now, I feel like the kind of scarlet letter shame that used to be kind of like in the, you shouldn't be playing video games, you're in your 30s or your 40s, whatever, like that seems to have disappeared from the kind of general population, it seems, these days. Like I've been managing my kids' baseball team this year, and I was using the Thirsty May Gmail account, and it was funny because I didn't really think about it at the time when I registered the email, because it's just what I've been using. And then all of a sudden I had parents like, oh, I actually looked up that domain on your email, and I'm playing Baldur's Gate 3. And I'm like, oh, okay. Sure. Yeah, I talked about that one in there. And yeah, like you said, with other parents, they'll be, Pokemon for sure is one of those things that the parents are certainly getting into. It's funny. Like, I almost curious, you'd think there'd be more Pokemon movies coming out and stuff, because with movie sales basically falling off a cliff, you'd think they'd be leaning more into these experiences where the kids and the parents want to go together. Like those seem to be the movies that are the ones that are still kind of keeping things afloat, I guess, at the theater.
Well, I gotta say, the one reason why there aren't more movies is because there are so many shows. There are so many Pokemon TV shows. Oh my goodness! I can't believe how many of them starring Ash, different versions of Ash.
Well, and Ash already became the greatest Pokemon trainer ever officially.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to just see all the old characters in the TV show that are they're still on the show now. Like how many years, 25 years later, to still see Brock and Misty and Ash and stuff like that. And
I think the voice actor for Ash just finished.
I think
just
that's right.
Retired.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's a long go.
Yeah, really good run. But yeah, the show seems to be as popular as ever, and there's so many of them. And I guess that's the cycle of life. It's just the new anime comes out, which introduces the new Pokemon or the new mechanics, and then the new card game comes out based on the game. Some of the new cards that are coming out are actually I think they're redoing some of the old cards or repackaging some of the old cards. So that's kind of an interesting thing that's happening too. I think with the card games, they're actually kind of going back and digging through some of the old cards that were released that we grew up with, and those are making a reappearance now. So that's pretty interesting as well.
Yeah, it's a juggernaut that doesn't look like it's slowing down in the least. I even would expect they'll announce another game at any point now. You'd think that there'd be some kind of follow up to the Legends kind of version of games or whatever. I'm sure. Because I'm pretty sure Arceus did pretty well, so I'm sure there's going to be something else along that vein.
Well, they did, right? They announced that follow-up. It's like Pokemon Legends Z or something, or Z, whatever. So that's coming early next year. And then on the heels of that, I imagine, I think it's Generation 10 will be the next one. It probably isn't that far off, but they can just keep remaking all these games too, right? They can do a Let's Go Johto. They can do a
Yeah.
Pokemon Pearl and Diamond. They did Pearl and Diamond. But they could do Black and White next. Like you can go back to all the old games, and just remake them.
I thought there would have been a new
style.
Let's Go by now. Like
I thought so too. Yeah. I'm surprised
maybe
by that.
it didn't fly with the new Pokemon catching mechanic. Maybe
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe people just told them, no, just remake the originals, like with Diamond and Pearl, I guess it was, right?
Let's Go was kind of heavily influenced by the Go game, Pokemon Go as well, right?
Yeah.
And so I think they as that game kind of maybe waned in popularity slightly, or people moved away from that and did other Pokemon things. I think that was more like a pairing game with Pokemon Go. So releasing that maybe at the height of Pokemon Go's popularity made a lot of sense, but now that maybe Pokemon Go is more of like a secondary game, doing another Let's Go title maybe doesn't make as much sense, and maybe they'll go back to the gold silver generation with something else, But I mean, they already remade those for 3DS, right, with Heart Gold and Soul Silver. So it's like they've already done remakes, so now it's remakes of remakes, right? So
yeah.
And again, it doesn't matter that they'll still sell.
They'll still sell
really, really well. So yeah. Pokemon is definitely here to stay, and probably just going to keep getting more and more popular and more people involved. Like it's addictive. It's just yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll have to see. We're recording right before the kind of main announcements from all the big publishers for the summer. We're on the heels of potential. Keep hearing about the handheld announcements from like Xbox and the PS Vita 2, which I think is baloney, but
yeah, I'm not sure about that.
But
I could see an Xbox One. I could see an Xbox One. But.
Yeah, maybe Nintendo will drop some Pokemon news in July.
Yeah. I think we've got a little bit of time left here. If you want to do some quick impressions, I know you had one more game you wanted to chat a little bit about, David.
Yeah, so this is a demake on Baldur's Gate 3, which I think was funny. We had got a little bit of a theme this episode. But this is Skald. This is a game from Raw Fury. I think Aiden was the one that kind of pointed this one out, or we were playing at the same time. So it's called Skald Against the Black Priory. So yeah, it's basically what I would say is a kind of I would almost call it a 12-bit game because it's a little more. It looks like it could be on NES, but there's definitely too much going on the screen to be able to be playable that way. But the so it basically works out. It's a very Dungeons and Dragons like experience. You start the game off by choosing like what kind of class you are, so it's all your typical class like sorcerer, rogue, or whatnot, and then you dress them up a little bit. It's mostly just choosing the colors, but the game starts off basically like every Larian game where you wake up on a ship that's on its way to an island, and then the tutorial is like basically you're working your way up the ship. The game plays the same way where you have like you equip items and weapons, and then it has your standard the enemy shows up, and so you can attack or you can use magic, and it's turn based, and the ship is attacked by a monster, and you end up falling off the boat, you end up on the island, and then you kind of got to start fresh, like your whole quest. So the whole point of the game was there's I guess like your character grew up in this one area, and the ruler of the areas you were, I could think the character's dad was like a soldier for this ruler or whatever, and his daughter, like your character got to know the daughter, but then things happen, and you go off to do your own thing, and when you kind of come back you find out the daughter's gone missing, and the main quest is to just find the daughter and bring her back or whatever. So this was like the beginning of the quest was like traveling to the island where she was last seen, and yeah, things don't go as planned. So it's been pretty neat so far. I haven't really gotten past. So I did the tutorial. I've walked around the coast of the island. I've picked up a character who's basically like an indentured servant from from the Navy that was bringing me to the island. So I made a deal with her that we would find this item that would have fallen off the boat that the Navy would want back, and we're going to exchange it for her freedom. So she's helping me under that pretense. It seems to be heavily implied that I could renege on the deal if I want, which seems kind of mean. But yeah, like there's multiple party members that you can get, like because I've seen screenshots where there's I'll looks like I'll be able to add people to my party. But yeah, it's pretty much it feels like playing a Baldur's Gate game on the NES.
Yeah.
So because everything looks like pixel. It looks nice. I guess my one gripe with the visuals is that sometimes it's not clear the actual items on the screen. Like I've walked into crabs and gotten into fights because I didn't realize that was a crab.
Yeah, they're kind of blending in with the
A
scenery.
lot of things blend in a little too much, so that can be annoying. And even in the fights, like there's an initial fight where the people I was traveling with get into a fight with the Navy on the ship right before the monster attacks. And so there's like this fight where it ends up where, depending on how things go, like you can either side with the people that came with you or you can side with the Navy. And so you get into a fight either way. But the everyone kind of looks the same. So you're like, okay, who are the guys on my team and who are the guys I'm supposed to be attacking here? And they do address it a little bit, like on the left there's like a list of the combatants, and there'll be like a red symbol next to the people you have to kill and a blue symbol beside the people that are helping you. And so you can put your mouse over the pointer and then it'll highlight the person on the screen. So it's like, okay, well that's clearly one of the enemies or whatever. But the colors aren't noticeable enough where it's like, okay, those are the bad guys. Like I can't just look at it and say those are the people I need to kill. Sometimes you do need to highlight where they are and do it that way. But otherwise it's been pretty fun. Like you can hold down the button. If you hold the shift button down, then it'll highlight the interactable items on the screen. So like when you're in the ship, like if I hold the button down, it'll show the barrels that I can interact with to see if there's things in them, or it'll show you where the treasure chests are. It'll show anything that you can actually click on. So that's good there. Like it seems like the things that could get on your nerves pretty quickly, there's something to address it in one fashion or another. And like with most Dungeon and Dragon games, like it seems like at the beginning things are a little bit more difficult in terms of like you can get wiped out in a fight pretty quickly if you take on a little more than you can chew. Like I walked into the crab's den and I was like destroyed and like almost immediately. You can save anywhere, so I didn't have to travel back too far. And by accident, I discovered a cheat menu in the game.
Oh man,
which is kind of neat. Like I think I aggressively hit my keyboard in frustration, and this Commodore 64 screen comes up. Like anyone who's used the Commodore 64, they'll recognize the blue screen right away. And so the screen came up and I could write code, and it says, and there's like it showed a couple examples of cheats that I could type in. Like it says like if you want to heal your party fully, like right now, like type heal full party and then just hit enter. And then so I did that, and then I figured out it was the tab button. So I hit the tab and it went back to the game, and like I was back to full health. So like if you're struggling and you just want to get through certain areas, like you can just like tab into this cheat menu.
Yeah, just smash your keyboard. Smash your keyboard to get to the get to the cheat menu. That's how you unlock it.
It just shows that aggression pays.
Man,
you know.
if this had come out on NES, we would have been all over this. This would have been like our most played NES game. Like, it looks great. I love the spell effects and everything. Obviously, like something like this probably wasn't possible on the NES, but
No, there's way too much
there's
going
way too much going on. Yeah,
yeah.
But no, it looks really cool. I definitely want to try it at some point. I feel like this is one of those games where it's probably better to play it on PC. I feel like mouse and keyboard might be the ideal way to do everything here, right?
When you turn the game on, like when I turned my PC on, I was going to play it because I was like, oh, this is clearly a CRPG, so I'm going to play on the PC. But I had forgotten to unplug my PS controller. And the game specifically says, like, you could try to play this with your controller. Yeah. We highly do not recommend this. Like, just
that's right.
Play with the mouse, play with the keyboard. This is the intended way to play. So I'm like, all right. So
as soon as a game like this comes out, you're like, oh, when is it coming to Switch? When is it coming to PlayStation? All this stuff. I'm like, no, this game, like, just looking at the way it plays, like, you watch like 20-second clip of it, you can tell, like, no, this is really suited to having a mouse to be able to look at all the minutia and organize everything and stuff like that. So
point and click for sure.
Yeah, I don't think it would make a lot of sense to put this on console. So if you do want to play it, this is probably the time to pick it up. And the reviews, like you said, are glowing. You seem to be enjoying it, David, as well. I'd love to play this at some point. Maybe we could do a deeper look at the game as well. But I think that'll take us to the end here. We're just about at an hour of recording, and we kind of covered all the games we wanted to chat about today. So thanks everybody for listening to our discussion of Fading Afternoon, 1000XResist. I keep wanting to say, like, think about that X as being a cross, and I'm like, no, it's not 1000XResist. Doesn't make any sense. 1000XResist. A little bit of waxing poetically, nostalgically on Pokemon, as we are wont to do on this podcast. These seminal RPGs and our kids getting into them and stuff in different formats. And then Skald, which seems like a very cool game on Steam that's available now. You can pick that up. You probably should if you're into CRPGs and that kind of old retro NES graphical style as well. Do we have what do we have coming up, David? I know we got a couple more Final Fantasy episodes to get through, right? We're almost done there.
One Rebirth episode left. It's the grand finale.
One left. Jeez.
Yeah. And then I know the next episode, I believe it'll be Paige and I talking about Paige giving some second opinions on some games. I know she wants to talk about Union Chronicle and 1000 Year Door. And Owen will be talking about Duck Detective.
That's a really cool one too. Yeah, I want to hear that. So thanks everybody. Thanks again, everybody, for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode. You can let us know what you think by emailing david@thethirstymage.com. Please leave us a review on your podcast app. We'd love to reach more folks, get more folks into the Thirsty Mage Discord as well. But that's all for this episode, and we'll talk to you again soon at the Thirsty Mage. Bye for now.
Bye.